we go. Let people get into the Zoom room. Thank you, everyone. Such a joy to be on this call this morning. I'm really excited that we get to talk about one of my favorite topics, but certainly our panelists' favorite topic. We'll start with brief intros, a few housekeeping items, and then we want to dig in. So, hi, everybody. I'm Hillary Rinaldi, Vice President at Whiteboard Advisors. We're an education policy firm based in DC and support teams across the country as we think about how do we improve outcomes for students and support teachers across K-12. Although we work across early childhood through the workforce, I'm here to focus on K-12 specifically today, on high school, and I'm joined by some of the most thoughtful leaders in education that I know, and I mean that as I've spent more and more time with them over the last few months. So we are recording this session. Everybody that's in attendance and that registered will receive the recording, and we will use the Q&A function to share questions. So please don't hesitate to jump in with your questions as we go, because this is a big topic as we think of this issue, this pattern across the country of what happens in ninth grade. We see attendance drop, absenteeism, chronic absenteeism skyrocket. We have course failure spikes for students. And we know that if they fall off track in ninth grade, it's incredibly difficult to get them back on track. And then we lose out on not just ensuring they graduate on time, but what happens next, right? That they have options and choices for what they want to do in the future. The truth is, solving this problem actually isn't a mystery. We do, in fact, know what works. And that's why we're going to hear from the experts that are doing this on the ground within their schools, within their systems, and that it's not just one program, but that they're seeing those gains. So without further ado, I'll introduce our panelists. We have Jen Troy from Aurora Public Schools, Jose Rivera from Grandview School District, our Executive Director of CHSS, Karen Andrews, and we're going to jump right in. So let's get started here with Jen. I think, Jen, you and I have talked a lot about your passion for ninth grade on track, but I would love to start with, why is this a system priority for you? This is something that you've scaled. I would love to hear more about your plans for Aurora, but also what you're bringing from Denver. Just share where this started and where it's going.
Yep. As Hillary mentioned, I'm obsessed with ninth grade on track work because I think it is just the critical lever to success in high school and then beyond high school. I think it is a very proactive strategy where a lot of times we are very used to being reactive in the high school space, getting kids over the finish line and kind of whatever it takes at the very end, instead of thinking about it from the very beginning. In Colorado, there's a lot of new legislation around the big three, which are work-based learning and internships, students graduating with 12 college credits, and earning industry credentials aligned to CTE. And what we've realized is, like, if you start high school and are off track, you don't get access to that, to those three opportunities, to the big three. You spend the entirety of high school catching up and responding and taking just your core classes and then doing credit recovery. And if you're a student who's a multilingual learner, you also have an English language development class. And you really lose the space in your schedule to take the courses that are interesting to you, that are connected to what you've envisioned your future to be. And you're likely losing your engagement levels because you're not taking things that are exciting to you. And the work in Denver we saw was really about the schools that did it. We had a few schools who did it really, really well, and they just skyrocketed towards success. Like, students were highly engaged, highly excited to be at school, and then having access to all the opportunities there. And so we really decided, I've only been in Aurora about 11 months, and we decided that ninth grade was the thing we were going all in on in our high schools in order to provide access to opportunities. So at the district level, we're building those systems and structures. We've brought school leaders and school leadership teams into the building, the incitement around ninth grade on track and why it matters and how it's going to set students up for success in high school and beyond. And so we've just become kind of collectively really excited And it's almost like now like a big rock rolling downhill, like it's gathering just like momentum throughout. And it's just like you can't stop this rock. Like you just can't stop this. And everyone is leaning into it across our entire system, all of our high schools.
It's so impressive. And I think it's also the work that Jose is leading in his district. And I think, Jose, if you want to give us a snapshot of the demographics of your district and who you're serving, and then also, how how you've taken a similar system approach. I think it's important that we acknowledge that, whether you're in a big urban district or a smaller rural district, what works is still true.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. So, Grandview School District, we're nestled in South Central Washington. We have about 4,000 students, about 93% Latino students, most of Mexican descent. We have a couple of students from Guatemala, El Salvador, but predominantly from the Mexican heritage background. About 85% free and reduced, so high poverty. And so very rural, as you can imagine. But this work is really taking foot and taking hold in our school district, especially our high school. And so, again, kind of like Jennifer was talking about, it's like, why not get behind this? We're seeing that when we focus our efforts on ninth grade versus all our efforts in 12th grade, that we get better results. When we create systems of support, when we intervene early and often with our students, we just see success with our students.
And it's also, about bringing the joy into the student experience. I think the start of high school can be very alarming, right? So much is new, and they're going from a little bit more of like safety and hand holding of the middle school experience in that transition. And I think sometimes we don't always acknowledge how much is at stake at that transition and what kind of supports they need. So I think, Karin, from the 30,000 foot view and also from the student perspective, like, why is it that we need to focus here, and what is it that makes the Center for High School Success support different?
Great, thanks. Hi, everybody. I think what happens in high schools is that students come in from middle school, where usually middle schools are teamed, kids are known, failure is seen as a growth opportunity. Students don't have a real consequence necessarily for low performance in middle school, although it's an early warning indicator that they'll struggle later. We all know that. But when they come from, 2 months of the summer, they come from this smaller, more nurturing kind of environment to a big anonymous, or a bigger, more anonymous high school. And what this work does is it helps schools create these personalized communities where every ninth grader is known. And as they start to struggle, if they start to struggle, they're identified and given the right support to get back on track. And it matters because ninth graders are 3 to 5 times more likely to fail a course than at any other grade level, and their absences go up 4 times. Unexcused absences from eighth to ninth grade are 4 times higher. And so, because ninth grade is the biggest predictor of who graduates, ninth grade on track is the biggest predictor of who graduates high school, it's critical that we bring this the focus there, because like Hillary said and Jen said, we are completely if you want students to access CTE, dual credit, college career pathways, they have to have room in their schedule. They have to simply be have passed those classes, not doing credit recovery, concept recovery, remedial support classes. This allows them to find belonging, be seen, learn the skills they need to advocate for themselves, and to be successful. And the way we support is I was a principal for 20 years, and my team is made up of a lot of people like me, but better, and a diverse team of people like me. And we just meaning former high school principals, and we work really closely with high schools, because as you know, in high schools, a lot of things are going on. There are a lot of initiatives, but there's also a lot of urgent things happening that have to be dealt with. So everybody wants to do the work, but sometimes what happens is it's not possible if somebody's just trying to make a change on their own. So we're there. We help develop these ninth grade success teams that share students and look at grades and attendance data, look at the root cause of student struggle, help implement our roadmap, and just keep that thread being pulled across the year and make sure that the teams have what they need, the school leaders have what they need, the district leaders have what they need to make sure that ninth grade is a priority, and those ninth grade on track rates, more and more kids are passing all of their classes.
Karin, that's so helpful. And I think we've hit some like buzzwords that I think we're going to come back to too, of like what is that what do those supports look like at each level when we talk about supporting the district teams, the school teams, and our teachers and students in the classroom. I think there's so much work happening, and there's also real initiative fatigue, especially in our high schools. Typically teachers in high school have much more of a closed door teaching approach. We know that's not new, and so I think bringing folks along to understand like the connective tissue between a student experience. I think, Jose, you and I talked a little bit about Algebra 1, and just I wrote a report about a year ago on Algebra 1 being how it should be a gateway, not a gatekeeper. And can you share what the unpacking of Algebra 1 has looked like and how that was really critical to some of this on-track work?
Definitely. Yeah. So one of the things that we do in Grandview is we really interrogate our data. Again, like Karin talked about, we look at attendance, we looked at behavior and academics. And so in our team, we started looking at data and organized in a way where we started looking at, okay, where are most of the F's coming from? Are they coming from electives? Is it, English? Is it algebra? What is it? And then we unearthed that it was actually, in fact, it was Algebra 1. And so when we started asking questions, the team started asking questions, we discovered that, students could do the math many of the times, but sometimes they just didn't know how to submit an assignment. It was on Canvas. It was, they didn't know the policies. And so once we figured out some interventions, because again, we want to intervene early and often, right? When we see kids struggling, we want to get to that root cause, do that root cause analysis of why are they failing? Do they truly not understand the content? Is it the teaching style, the approach, students not being there? What is it? And so once we were able to find out some of those issues, we started seeing that the F's in algebra started going down. I mean, they're still there. Some of them are still there, right? Because kids learn at different rates and different times in different ways. But once we started looking at that data, which I firmly believe that data is our guidance star, right? Our North Star. If we're not looking at the data, we're just kind of shooting in the dark, and we don't want to do that. We want to be very intentional, very positional with how we respond to students when they're struggling, right? Because we know they're struggling. And one of the things that I really push on our team is that we're not just going to admire the data, we're going to do something about it. And we have that kid talk protocol that we can say, okay, today we're going to look at these students, and here's what we're going to do. Who's going to champion that student, and then come back and check in on that particular student, how they're doing. And we're progress monitoring all along the way. But yeah, but looking at the data and really interrogating and taking a hard look in the mirror, because high schools are very traditional. They like to do things a certain way, and they think kids are adults and they should be able to be responsible. And they should be able to do this and that. And we're saying, no, they're still kids. We are
actually
the
have to
adults.
teach them those skills,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
They don't just switch from 8th grade to 9th grade and now they know how to keep track of their schedule, and like they literally are trying to figure out
Precisely.
where to go in the building, let alone to know how to manage their time and build the durable skills that we keep talking about too, of how do they communicate and advocate for themselves and collaborate with their peers. I think that really comes through in the Kid Talk protocol. Karin, can you give us the specifics as we say that? I know the four of us are very familiar, but I think the audience would benefit from the what
Sure.
of the Kid Talk.
Yeah, of course. So what happens in this work is in high school, usually teachers focus on content area PLCs, right? It becomes your department. So that work is really important. You do need a math department to have a coherent vision of what math looks like 9 through 12. But what we do is we say, let's center the kids, right? Let's have a team of teachers, interdisciplinary team of teachers that serve the same kids. So in really large schools, like right now I'm in Phoenix, where we work with really large high schools across the whole district here. And in there, we help schools cohort the kids so that the same core teachers serve the same group of students. And those teachers meet every week or every other week at minimum, and they become what we call the ninth grade success team with an administrator there. And actually in Grandview, Jose, who's an associate superintendent, he actually sits on the team too, which is pretty amazing. Um, and what they do though is those teachers are looking at together, they're creating a holistic picture of that kid, much like what happens in elementary school. In elementary school, that teacher, that third grade teacher, knows how the kid is when they come in the morning. They're hungry, they're tired, or really excited. They love science, but they really can't stand reading and writing. They know the mom, and they know, the kid loves football. They know all those things. But as the kids get older and older, it becomes less and less about that and how the kid is performing in this 145-minute to an hour long block of time. And often what happens is, if I'm the English teacher and Hillary is failing my class, I assume that Hillary is probably failing all of her classes. And that's actually not true. So what this team does is it says, all right, we're looking at the kids who have 1 to 2 Fs, which means that they have 5 or 6 passing grades, right? They're doing well in 5 or 6 classes. They're attending 80 to 90% of the time. So they're there 4 to 5 days a week. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to know them, identify the challenges, and create a plan to support them moving forward. And this is a real strengths-based approach. So the Kid Talk protocol asks this team of teachers to say, what's working for this student that is failing 1 to 2 classes? And those teachers that have the student that's failing their class, they get to listen to the things that are really working for that student in the other classes. Then they look at what's happening in the classes where they're struggling. What is the root cause of that student struggle? And then they identify something, which is usually a durable skill. It's something like organization, or it could be an academic skill deficit. It could be self-advocacy. It could be self-regulation. And then they look at we have what we call a skills wheel that shows you can identify the things that, in some really high leverage, quick supports and interventions that will move a kid, teach them something that will carry forward and apply to all of their other classes and their life as they move forward. So there's, interventions that happen quickly. Because what actually happens is you say, this kid's failing, assign them to after school tutoring, if you have that, right? Well, one, it may not be an academic skill they need. Two,
Right.
out of school interventions don't work for everyone. There's a lot of reasons. So this brings this team and the responsibility for that. Their teachers see quick wins, and they start to realize that there is a lot that can be done as a team. And it's also
And
great
not
support
making
for
those
teachers. Teachers
assumptions,
love it.
right? Like it's not,
Yep.
and it's
Yep.
not malintention, right? If I'm a teacher and I
No.
see a student's failing, like my fact base is that they're failing. So, Jen, I would love to hear from you and some of your student and teacher examples of putting a finer point to what Karin's saying. I think a lot of this is like the aha moment that's also very like, well, of course this is how you do that, but that it does take effort and time and space to support teachers in this too. So tell us more about your kids.
So I actually want to rewind all the way back. I think it's about 2 years ago now when I actually first met Karin in East Baton Rouge, and I saw my first ever Kid Talk. And I remember sitting there, we're watching this Kid Talk, and I'll never forget it. They were discussing a student, and she was failing JROTC. And once they finally got to the why, which was she didn't like the uniform, and you were required to wear the uniform a certain amount of days, or like on specific days, and she didn't like it. And so that was literally her failing grade, the why for her failing grade. So listening to this team discuss, like, how do we work with her? What conversations can we have? Who has a relationship with her? Was my aha was like, interventions as educators, we think they have to be this complex, nuanced, special thing that costs money or takes a lot of time. And really it was as simple as who's got a relationship and who's going to have a conversation with this student? And how are we going to help her to realize, like, what are the trade-offs? What can we do? Is there like if she wears it this number of days, she could not wear it this number of days, like whatever it was. And it was such a simple conversation, and it was such a simple intervention that was going to help her get on track and re-engage in JROTC and in not be failing her class. And it was just like, oh. And since then, I've kind of been glued to Karin and her team because I was like, wow, every school needs to have these conversations, frankly, about all kids, 9, 12. We're starting in ninth grade because that's where it matters the most. But like, frankly, if we're not having these conversations about kids, because to Karin's point, it is about durable skills. It is about relationships. It's not just about the academics, about why students might be failing a class. And like that simplicity and that it's essentially like not rocket science for what we can do to support students better and to make sure we're teaching them how to be successful and building those skills along the way. In every kid talk I've been in since then, it is all kind of the whole conversation has been about relationships, connectivity. What do we know about with students and what's happening even outside of school? It's not solely just do they know the math content or not, or do they have the foundational math skills to be able to access blah, 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 blah. It has really been about how are they connected, what's going on, and what can we do about it? And the interventions have just been so simple that to me, it's like, why wouldn't you have these conversations around kids? And people are really excited to have the conversations around kids and to volunteer to be the one who like builds the relationship or connects with families and connects with the kid or pulls in the link crew leader as like a peer support. It has just been really eye-opening to watch how simple it can be when you've built the systems to do it.
When you've built the systems, right? So the sustainability piece of an investment of time and money, of course, to get to start this work, and you need more than a single champion to make it sustainable. So Jose, I'd love for you to share more about the from the beginning and then where you are now, how you've ensured that sustainability, that you have buy-in from your teachers and your principals and your school counselors, that this is where we should be spending our time and energy, that it's not just another initiative, but it really is the system and structure that we use to support all.
Mhm. I'll just say this really quick. I mean, ninth grade is the most critical year. It's a make or break year, right? That one year is going to have a big impact on the next 3 years of those students' academic careers and lives, right? And then those next 3 years are going to have a big impact on their next 50 years of their life. So it's that big of a initiative. Um, Definitely need district sponsorship, and then the principal buy-in. The principal, in my opinion, is a linchpin. If the principal doesn't believe in this work, like any other initiative that you try, it's going to die on the vine. And so working with our principals, making sure that they're part of the work that they've bought in and they see the benefits of it is going to be so critical. And we can work with our teachers and support them. I was very fortunate enough, and initially when I started learning about ninth grade success, Karin was actually our success coach through Center for High School Success, and we had the opportunity to go to Chicago and visit some of the schools there and see the Kid Talk protocol in action. And so, I was sold. It was like kind of like Jennifer was saying, it's like it's not rocket science. If we create the systems, the structures, and the supports to intervene early and often, it's gonna pay dividends down the road. And so we're in our 7th year. And it does take executive sponsorship from the district that this is not an initiative that we're going to support one year and the next year, no, and it's going to die out. And it was, teachers are not going to wait me out on this one, right? We feel that this is one of the most researched, most effective, not, I don't want to call it intervention, but program that we have in our high school that's going to impact our ninth grade students to be successful. Again, my just physical presence being in some of these ninth grade success meetings sends the message to the team that, the district does support this. I also keep our board members abreast of what's happening with ninth grade success, looking at our data, just talking about it intermittently, just keeping them updated on it. So we have district level support all the way through, and then supporting our principals and our team through going through to collaboratives, learning and collaborating, and then creating those interventions that are going to be they can be simplistic or they can be complex. It depends on that child. right? We've always said that interactions are not interventions. We can't love our kids to success. We actually have to, create a system and a structure of support. We don't lower the bar. We keep the bar where it's at. We want them to be, able to graduate high school with all their credits, with the knowledge, skills, dispositions to be successful, contributing members of society. As the creators of the system, we need to send down the ladders, the ropes, the scaffolds, whatever they need to be successful to accomplish that. And I think that's what ninth grade success does, is it creates those systems, those interventions of support for kids to be successful. But the key to this, in my opinion, is we have to intervene early and often. It can be a one-shot deal. We have to be there to support our kids all the way through.
And that pours out in the research too, right? I think, Karin, we've got a lot of folks that have joined us from Illinois, which is fun to see as an Illinois native, but also the University of Chicago research is part of the anchor of the CHSS model. Can you share a little bit more, Karin, about why we know this works and how and what the data has shown us over time?
Yeah, of course. The About 20 plus years ago, when Chicago public schools grad rates were in the 40s, high 40% range, they embarked on a project with University of Chicago to really dive into what is causing this. What is the factor that determines most who will graduate high school? They reflected, had ideas. Maybe it's level of poverty, maybe it's race, maybe it's language, maybe it's um, eighth grade test scores, maybe it's third grade reading scores. And what they did is they dove into all the data they had, and they learned that actually the number one factor that determines who graduates high school is who passes all of their classes in ninth grade. And that's, or is on track at the end of ninth grade, meaning passing all but one class. And so that means that they are 3 times more likely to graduate than off track peers. And students who are on track in ninth grade, 90% of them graduate. So it is absolutely a worthwhile investment. And there's a massive return on investment for doing this work, because when you in with public education having a lot of barriers right now in the national scene, funding challenges, uncertainty, all of that. This is something that everyone can do, right? And the return is you hold on to kids, right? Your enrollment, you don't have that ninth grade bubble, and then every year you lose kids across the time. You hold on to your kids, which is a huge financial benefit to the district. And then also you reduce your credit recovery or concept recovery costs, which mean
Right.
that you can put that money back into other parts as well, other parts of your program. And this isn't really a program as much as a mindset shift and an approach to how you do things. I want to just say, once you know it and you see it this way, you can't see it another way. You can't unsee it, and you will be different, like Jen said, and Jose, I think both.
Mhm.
I think, Jen, you and I talked about this too, of like that idea that you can't unsee it. And it's not, we talk about, yes, there's financial incentive from a district perspective. There's, accountability perspective, incentive from a school leader perspective. There's, teachers see greater success within their students, but really at the student level, that incentive of you want to show up to school, right? We're
Mhm.
there. I think when we talk about relevance and rigor, I always add joy. And I think some of that is missing in high school. I think, Jen, one of the 3 priorities for your school district is around supporting multilingual learners, right? And so when we think about supporting students that are in those special populations, it's not just about students that are behind academically, it's also about the students that need additional support and where we find that time so that they can take advantage of all of the opportunities that come about in high school. And I know you mentioned the big 3, but I think if you can share more about that piece, because I think we also get, depending on what level we're talking about, we maybe miss the nuance of what this means for a student experience.
Yep. So as Hillary mentioned, one of our big goals, like our district goals, is 312 students in grades 3 through 12 being on track with access, which is how we evaluate progress for our multilingual learners, and specifically how they're growing over the continuum. If you're a student who's a multilingual learner, especially in levels 1 and 2, that means you are also getting an additional class for English language development. And so if you are taking an English language development class and you are behind in your classes, so you're in credit recovery, literally your entire day is core credits, credit recovery, and then your English language development class. And you have no access to the things that feel interesting, exciting, bring you joy about your future, and really like be the engagement and the hook to why your core content really matters. And so we've taken the approach of really seeking to blend content and language across all of our content areas. So if I'm a math teacher, I'm a math teacher and I'm also a language teacher. Every teacher in our district has to be a language teacher because we're a district where we are 65% multilingual learners. And so what that means, if I'm a student who's a multilingual learner and I am not set up for success and being successful in high school, I just don't get access. And when you think about equity, access has to be a part of that conversation. If you don't have equitable access to the things that will propel you into your future, like we're not doing it right. And so we're really working to figure out what are those systems and structures that make sure you're set up for success, that make sure you're exiting from the English language development class so that you just are able to find joy and connection in school versus just always scrambling to either catch up or keep up instead of get ahead and kind of just like, I always say, like the world is our oyster and access to opportunities is what we want for every kid.
It's exactly that, Jen. And Jose, I think you and I have both heard this from James, the principal at Camelback and Phoenix Union, of ninth grade is so important for the next 3 years, but the next 3 years are so important for the next 50 years, right? And so I would love for you to elaborate on how you've used that with your staff, and then because I think it feeds into the question we got in the chat too of shared ownership, right? This isn't it's not just on the individual student, but it's also just not on an individual teacher. So how do we think of building that with our staff and even where to get this work started? I think there's general consensus that ninth grade matters, but I think the finer point of how it can be make or break.
Yeah, I mean, just that statement that, ninth grade year is critical for the next 3 and then those 3 for the next 50. I think if that doesn't bring a sense of urgency to your work, I don't know what will. I mean, and that's kind of the thing that we saw as a team is the urgency. Students, they normally get 1 year to be a ninth grader. And then, we have to make that so impactful and so successful. Any grade level for that matter, unless you're like a fifth year senior, which what we don't want. We don't want kids not graduating and all of that, being 5 and 6 year seniors or eventually just dropping out. We know the science. I mean, education is a science-based profession, in my opinion. There's enough educational research out there that tells us how to do this. And then the research that Karen just referenced, I mean, 30 plus years of research around what works for ninth grade students. Why wouldn't we do that? And so with our team, the urgency is there. It's also about getting the right people on the bus and in the right seats. That's so critical. You want people that believe in the work, that are data literate, and that are going to not admire the problem, but like I said, adjust systems, create new systems, so that students can get back on track and not fail. And so, I think one of the biggest things is that urgency, that efficacy of teachers. That if we come together and we look at the data and we create these systems of support, kids will be successful on our watch. And so I think that's kind of talks about that statement that it's so critical and the urgency piece.
Mm-hmm.
So, Karin, when we put all of this together, what does it look like to actually get this work started with a district or with a school team? And I know it might be helpful. Maybe I'll pull up the roadmap. But I think we've talked a lot about some really pertinent examples. But we know we have folks on the line that want to jump in and start doing this work. So what does it mean to get started?
Great. Well, we we add new partners every year. Currently, we partner with 90 school districts, over 200 high schools in 12 states, and we're growing quickly. We've added several new states for next year and are at, I don't know, 60 some new high schools for next year. We still have 40-ish spots left to add for next year, and be happy to talk to anyone separately, about your context, because this work is not also, it's not one size fits all. We look at the roadmap. These are the 5 primary drivers of the roadmap for ninth grade success, which is research backed, highly effective roadmap for how to do this work. And the 5 primary drivers, data, teams, interventions, transition, and instruction, are that's what guides and ensures that if you do this work with us for 4 years, you will embed these practices. It will become a way of being, rather than things that you do, right? A mindset shift in a way, like we talked about, you can't really go back. So we assess, though, with each school, what's already in place, what's partially in place, and what's not in place. And then we look at the continuum of implementation, which we have, and we say, this school will start right here. These are the things, this is the next most logical step. This is what this school is ready for right now, right? So it's not a cookie cutter approach. If you want to show the whole roadmap, Hillary, it looks, this is the whole roadmap, and it has 80 some strategies. And they're grouped underneath the
Don't be alarmed.
primary drivers.
We don't take them all on in one year. Right?
No, absolutely not. It's broken out in phases, like I said, and we start you in this continuum of implementation. And really, the biggest first thing is we get those teams started, right? First, we make sure we have data, that is grades and attendance, real-time grades and attendance. The teams use the real-time grades and attendance. We put those teams together that share kids, ninth grade teams, and they begin to look at the data, look at the kids, like I said, who are failing 1 to 2 classes. They're 80 to 90% of the time. This is, by the way, MTSS work at the high school level. That is what it is. And so if you're in many places struggle with MTSS at the high school level, it makes more sense. It's more logical and easier to implement at other grades, K-8. This helps bring it in a really meaningful way to high school, where teachers understand it and actually see that it's possible, and it builds a lot of confidence there. So these teams are looking at that data. The teams are identifying the root cause using the Kid Talk protocol. This is a very oversimplified version of this, but then they go to interventions. They're looking at what do we already have in our school and inventorying those and saying, all right, how can we effectively align what we already have to the root causes and the needs of our students as this is going. So then after that, we start looking at what is the transition, not after, it's not in order, but the transition from 8th to 9th grade is from 8th grade to the end of 9th grade. It's not the summer between. And that is, do we have a master schedule that really supports the developmental needs of 9th graders? Do we have our students cohorted? Do we have teachers sharing the same kids? Do we have our strongest teachers in 9th grade? Because that is what we need. And then we talk about, do we have a 9th grade seminar class, or can we use advisory differently, right? Like, how can we align structures and systems so that interventions can happen during the day? Kids are, we make this school where small enough where kids are seen and known, right? And then instruction, it's not about science and math. It's about doing things consistently. Mm-hmm. And fair grading practices, and really opening that up, where in high schools that doesn't happen very often. Usually I do it my way, Jose does it his way, Hillary does it hers, and Jen does it hers. And we don't talk about it, and we just say it's my academic freedom. Well, that's fine, but I think we all want it to work.
It can be a disservice to students.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
But you all, in addressing some of the pros, right? It's also some of the barriers to leading into this work. I think the fact of how high school has typically operated, and arguably operated for 50 years, that's a big culture shift. So Jen, Jose, I'd love for you both to talk about the mindset change that this takes. How does it affect? I think we have heard the positive effects of that culture shift, but what does it take to get there? And let's be honest with some of the hurdles in doing that to reach success.
Jose, you want to start?
Sure, I can. Yeah, it's hard work, I will say that, but it takes some grit and perseverance to do this work. It takes courageous leadership to have those tough conversations with those traditional I call them fundamentalist type teachers, like Karin
Mm,
described, that they're set in their ways, academic freedom, and I taught it, they didn't get it, it's their fault, that type of mentality. So now we're saying, no, if there's 100 kids that we service every day, and they're struggling, there's 100 solutions. So how do we individualize it? How do we differentiate so that every kid is seen, for valued, and uplifted so that they can be successful? And so it has really created a different culture shift. Initially, I'll be 100% honest. When we initially started this work, there was some pushback from our leadership and from some teachers. And why are we doing this? And even our counseling team was like, why are we focusing on ninth grade? We should be focusing on our seniors. There, the fire's over here. Yes, but if we're
mm.
proactive, there won't be a fire in 4 years if we really focus on our ninth grade students, right? And so it's taken some time to really change the mindset and the culture of some of our staff, working with our leadership, again, going to collaboratives, our partnership with Center for High School Success. We've had the opportunity to go down to Camel Mountain and different places to learn about the work in a deeper level. And so that creates buy-in, urgency with some of our staff. And so, you know, culture is created by us, by leaders. It's what we accept and what we don't accept and what we value and what we uplift. And so one of the things that I'm proud of is the fact that I am championing this work. Being there, seeing it firsthand, I can speak to it. I'm not just in my office and I'm getting second or third hand information. I actually go down to
Right.
the high school and sit in and provide guidance and support and jump in wherever I can. I mean, I really want it to be their team and me just kind of be an observer and be there more of a support. But it takes a lot of hard work, a lot of resilience, and a lot of tough conversations with folks, and especially when you're creating new systems and structures that challenges the old mindset or the old culture. But it can be done, because if you're about kids, you're about kids, right? The adults in the system, we all made a collective, conscious decision to become educators in a high school setting, right? Our kids don't. They don't get to pick and choose, especially in Grandview. It's one high school. Either you come here, or there's no choice. So
Right.
we, the adults in the system, have a choice. Our kids don't, and we have to do the best we can for them.
I think this is an opportunity to leverage the like seeing is believing a little bit. So like I saw
Mm,
it, was able to believe it, and then I brought people. Our team brought folks to Camelback, and we didn't just go like a few of us went early, and then a few of us went again, and then a few of us went back to Montbello High School, which is a similar demographic to our district in Colorado. And so it was an opportunity to like continue to like grow the who's seen it and who believes it, and now how can you talk about it? Because I think it takes actually a unique set of adults to do this work. In high schools, typically your best teachers are like, I teach the seniors, I teach the AP classes, the IB classes,
right.
enrollment, instead of I teach the freshmen, and here's why. And so getting people to really rally around like, it is the coolest place to be to teach the freshmen because it is what sets them up for the next all the years of their life, right? Like
Right.
it is literally the foundation of everything. And if you build a foundation out of quicksand, no one's going very far. And so to me, investing folks in ninth grade is the way. And that means that you're hiring the right team, the right leaders of ninth grade, the right counselors for ninth grade, the right teachers for ninth grade. And everybody is like, it is the place to be. Like, we're planning a bunch of hype for the summer when we kick it off with the teacher teams. We're going to get the swag. We are going to make it like ninth grade is the place you want to be because of its value to kids.
Well,
And
and then the ninth graders will believe it too, right? Like
exactly.
then it's the place they want to be and they will show up and they will rise to the occasion, right? When we set high
Imagine being upperclass.
expectations.
Yes.
Right.
Imagine being an upperclassman teacher and getting kids who are on track. Like, once we show people the impact that it can have all the way through our system, instead of getting kids who are missing foundation or who have challenging attendance habits and things like that, imagine getting a group of kids who are at 90% attendance every day and come to school because they're engaged and they know how to do school and they feel connected to adults and kids and peers and the community. Like, that's going to be a game changer. And I think the entire system's going to feel it. And ninth grade teachers and leaders are going to get to feel really proud of the supports that they provided kids.
And
Like
it's
that,
another byproduct, right? We're
that,
talking about the outcomes for students, which is our primary objective, right? But then the byproduct of those things means like stronger teacher retention, right? That your best teachers actually want to stay because of those things, because they know what they're doing every day is supporting those outcomes, and they're getting students that are more likely to be on track, that they have the support from their central office team, that this is the work that they should be doing. I think, Jen, your point is so well made of we do have to see it to believe it. It's one thing to, read about it or to hear about it on the webinar. I think we're painting a pretty robust picture, but I think, Karin, there are a lot of opportunities to see the work in action. Can you share more about the different visits that you've done recently or that are coming up? And then I'd love to also highlight the annual summit.
Great. Yeah, we when Jen and Jose talked about visiting schools, those are what we call national demonstration schools that have really implemented the work over time and have seen really strong results. And we have one in Portland, one in Denver, one in Indianapolis, one in East Baton Rouge. And I think I said Portland. Yeah.
Yes.
And Phoenix, where I am right now, like I said. And we set up these visits where people can, after we meet with a district who's interested in this work, we invite them to go to those visits. They can come even without having met with us first. But we do that. And then we say, come see it, because it's easy to listen and get excited about it, but what does it really look like and feel like? And that's what you're hearing from Jose and Jen, like the excitement, the shift in teacher mindset, the joy really, and the connectedness across. So that's the demonstration visits are great for that. And we could have a lot more demonstration schools. But right now we just picked some schools. We could probably have 50 national demonstration schools, and Grandview could definitely be one as well. And just doing that will allow you to see it in action. The National Leadership Summit that we have is in November, and we can put a link to the registration in the chat as well. But it's a wonderful opportunity. Both Jose and Jen were there last year to come together with like-minded folks. It feels almost like a movement when you're there, and learn what's your next level up move as a district leader, as a principal, assistant principal, as a team lead, as a team member.
Love it. Yes. And I know there is another Montbello visit coming up too. So there's lots of opportunity to engage. I think, like Karin mentioned, we have about 40 schools we're looking to onboard for the next school year. And we know that this is a really important time as we see, a continued of stagnation of chronic absenteeism across the country. This is a great opportunity for that intervention. Also think as the center has some philanthropic funding to support the effort. I think, Karin, let's talk brass tacks for a second on what does it cost to do this work, and what could that look like if you are a system leader that's looking to launch in the fall?
Right. Well, we are a national nonprofit, as I hope you know. So we're not a business looking to make money. We're simply paying what it costs us to do this work. And we use a fee for service that's based on the number of ninth graders in a school, because that is proxy for the amount of time it takes, the number of teams that will be in that school. So that's why we do that. Normally, the cost is $140 per student per ninth grader. And right now, though, we have some philanthropic funding that is being allocated to reduce costs because, like I said, with all of the challenges and around public school funding right now, we want people to be able to see. We want new districts to be able to see the return on investment that I mentioned earlier. That really is through maintaining your enrollment and reducing your credit recovery costs. And so right now we're our philanthropy is paying for 75% of the first year and 50% of the second year and 25% of the third year of costs. So starting out the first year it's $35 a ninth grader, the second year 70, the third year 105, and then the fourth year 140. But at that point you've seen 20 to 30 times return on investment in state funding. So just want to say that it is definitely more than pays for itself in that. And we also don't believe that you need a lot of additional funding to do this work because what we're trying to do is align what high schools already have in their building. And like I said,
Right.
much of it is mindset work and setting up those systems and structures to support the team to develop the mindset.
Right. Jen and Jose, as the leaders that are not just doing this work, but also have to pay for it, right? That everything right now is expensive, and we're also having to do more with less. There's always the cost benefit analysis. How is this the thing that you're absolutely going to continue to spend your district dollars on?
For us, it's about like the proactive versus reactive, right? Like we are investing a lot of dollars on the big three, like the building. We have a $50 million that are going into revamping our CTE place, like our CTE programming. If we invest that, but don't invest here, who has access to the $50 million of CTE programming is not the
Right.
kids who deserve it and who we're talking about. And so for us, it is like a worthwhile investment in order to provide access. We want to add more work-based learning and AP, IB, concurrent enrollment. And again, no one's going to access it. So if we invest there, but not here, we're missing the mark. We're going to invest for no reason. And so really, like, to me, it is the right investment because it is like for long-term success. Building these systems and structures now, like Karin knows this. I joke around all the time. Like my hope is this is a 3-year relationship and then I'll do whatever she needs afterwards. But like, ideally, we're building those systems and structures over the next 3 years that we learn how to do it and sustain it over the long term and can call for support. But really, like, this is something that once we learn how to do it and do it well and build those systems and structures, we can kind of release that space and then spend the money elsewhere to continue investing in other spaces. But to me, this upfront investment feels like a critical opportunity to support all kids across our district.
Yeah, and what I'll say to that is, I always feel that your budget should reflect your values, right? If it's important, then you're going to invest in it, and especially in something that we know works and it's effective. And I'll just say it's not a program per se. It's really like a mindset. It's a system of urgency, relationships, and action, right? It's really what it is. It's not a program that you can buy off the shelf. And the investment is minimal compared to the gains we're going to get back with our kids graduating on time. I mean, at the end of the day, that is the main thing. And we always have to remember to keep the main thing, because there are so many initiatives out there. There's so many shiny objects. There's so many businesses trying to sell you the next great thing, right? And it's not about that. And what I always tell people is like, I used to use an analogy because I'm big into weight training and basketball, right? I always say the heaviest weight in the gym is the front door, right? Just get in that space first and foremost. And we don't want complexity, we want consistency. Because when you look at the roadmap and you hear us talking, it sounds, oh my gosh, it's so big, it's so complex. Well, we just say, and you walk into the gym, right? And there's so many equipment, there's so many machines, everyone's doing this, everyone's doing that. Focus on one body part, focus on one machine, and be consistent. Then add another one and another one. And pretty soon, in 12, 13 weeks, you're going to start seeing the results. right? So if you're consistent and you invest the time and effort and energy needed to sustain some of these programs, you're going to see the successes. Nothing happens overnight. We're in our sixth, seventh year of this work, and we're still fine tuning it. We're still finding little challenges here, but for the most part, we have a lot of systems and structures up ready to support our ninth grade students. So yeah, you got to put your money where your values are, and so yeah, I'll just leave it there.
I
I
also
love that,
think
Jose. Yes, please,
I
Jen.
also think education, we talk a lot about innovation. And something that I've come to realize over the last couple of years is sometimes innovation is doing core business really well so that you can innovate where it makes sense. To me, this is core business. To me, this is something we need to do really well so
Mhm.
that we can innovate in other spaces. So, like, this is our innovation in this moment, so that.
I love that, Jen. And it brings me, I think that's what I feel optimism about too right now is the education leaders that are making the main thing as Jose is, and that you are investing in what we know works, which sounds so simple, and yet it's not always what we see happen. And as we are forced to do more with less, right? Some of the innovation is being creative with finding ways to put funds towards the things that are going to be most effective in the long term. So I know we're getting close on time. I think my final question for everyone is, as we look to the class of 2030 and beyond, what are you optimistic about? What is it that you are excited to see and bringing you joy in this moment as we look to the future? When there are a lot of there's a lot of weight in the world right now, and there's a lot that we are all carrying. So, what's the thing that you are optimistic about for class of 2030 and beyond?
I can chime
I'll
in.
start.
Oh, go ahead.
No,
Karin, you go,
I
and
mean,
we'll come around.
okay. I am really optimistic that we know how to do this work. We can do this work. We just need to choose to do it. The class of 2030, we could have every school in the United States that is committed could do this work. And I feel like I'm super optimistic that we can support. We're at a place in our development as an organization where we can support as many schools and districts that are ready to do it. So I'm excited to meet you all if you're interested, and to jump in and make this a national priority.
Jose?
Jen. Oh, Jose.
I think Jen was going to go next. So I'll let Jen
Okay.
go. Yeah.
Um, Mine is because of this work. So it's really important to me is that students aren't told, no, you're not ready for this opportunity, or no, you're not ready for this job, or you don't have the skill set for this job. My hope is always that kids get to have access to unlimited choices and opportunities, and that they are the ones who get to say no because there's something even better or bigger for them. And I think because of this work, our students will have more and more access to opportunities and get to be the ones saying, that's not what I want to do. I want to do this other thing, and get to be the ones who say no versus being told no. Access to opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about equity, I think this is equity in action, right? It's the right time, the right program for the right kids for the right reasons, right? And that's for equity, right? We intervene at the right time, at the right moment, with the right resource, and really differentiating. And so I'm just really hopeful, that we have like-minded individuals across the country. We have great systems of support with Center for High School Success, demonstration sites, and I think the future is bright for education. I know public education right now, personally speaking, is under attack, and so we can do better, and we will do better because once you know better, you do better. And so I'm just really optimistic for the future of our current ninth grade students and future students. I think we're doing the right work, and we're going to see the return on our investment.
I couldn't agree more. And it's when the return on investment is not just being able to use dollars differently and better. The return on investment is that voice and choice for students, across the country. There's more opportunity now than ever. We have no idea what kinds of jobs they're going to be taking on in the future. So how do we best prepare them to be good citizens and good stewards of their own knowledge and work? I am optimistic because of who I'm joined with on the call, and getting to be in conversation with you all this morning is an amazing way to spend the day. And we're excited to bring more district leaders into the CHSS family. So please don't hesitate to reach out with questions. We will share the recording, and you can catch more as you follow us on LinkedIn and on the CHSS website. Please, if you want to join us in Montbello, we'd love to have you. And we look forward to bringing on a new cohort of districts for the fall. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.